Hey plant friends, welcome back to my channel Planty Princess. My name is Ashley. Today is the day that we find out who the lucky winner will be for the Pink Princess Philodendron giveaway. If you entered this contest and you're interested to see if you are that lucky winner, stay tuned to the end of this video and we will be drawing together the winner for the holiday giveaway. As you see, I have my last Planty Princess shirt on for this year. Let me just state really quickly that this is not another entry to the giveaway. This is just my Happy Holidays Planty Princess shirt to wear during the announcement of the giveaway winner. This video is going to be about these three plants that I have sitting right here. As you can see, they look a little dead, they look a little dying, and they are just not the healthiest of the plants. These are three of my more rare plants, definitely my most expensive plants, and they are all Aroids. So this video is going to be focusing on how to save your dying Aroids. And really just, these are actually all Monsteras. So this would also be a great video to specifically focus on the Monstera genus. But like I said, you can do this for pretty much any Aroid, and really any plant that has nodes. This would be a great way to save those plants. So anyways, without any further ado, let's get right into this video. So to start off, I have two of my Monstera Obliqua Perus. I have the mother plant here, which, as you can tell, looks very, very sad. She only has one leaf left. I think when I got her, she had around 7 leaves or so. And she does have these two very long runners, which are still very healthy. The shorter runner, is starting to kind of dry up at the tip there. So the reason I am going to be cutting this one back down completely is because this plant is very hard to take care of, honestly. This is not a plant that I would recommend for a beginner. Even being a little more, I would consider myself a little more experienced. Obviously, I do not know everything. I still have tons and tons to learn, clearly. But I have learned a decent amount along the way, and I'm still always learning. I'm still always researching. But even being a little more of an experienced, I guess, plant parent, this plant has been very tough for me. It was doing very well when I first got it. It put out a very nice runner. I had cut that off, propagated that if you saw that video. If you saw my last video, you saw that one of those propagations that I had in sphagnum took, and it's finally a baby plant. So because of that, I'm not too nervous to do this, because if I do lose this plant, I know that I do have another one started. This plant, in my experience, especially because of how the propagations went, does require a super lot of humidity to thrive and even survive. So I had propagations in orchid bark and pawn, and even a couple in lava rocks, and then I threw like 2 of them into sphagnum in a prop box. Every other method did not work. They were staying alive, but I think they were honestly slowly kind of withering away. But the one of them that was in the sphagnum in the prop box, that's the one that grew the leaf. That's the one that is thriving. It is growing so greatly. It is so beautiful. By the way, the leaf finally did open, so let me just give you a little peek at that. If you saw that last video there, you'll love to see how the leaf looks fully opened. So this is my little baby Obliqua Peru. So gorgeous. I just lost one of the propagation runners. But this one also does have another one coming in right here. If you can see that. It's probably kind of hard, especially with all the droplets of water. But so I'm not going to be too upset if, you know, if this doesn't succeed, because I do have, you know, a plant going. I am worried about when it is time to transfer this plant. Honestly, when I do transfer it, I may keep it in sphagnum for a while. Honestly, I think as long as it can grow, as long as it's doing well and growing, I may just leave it in sphagnum. I also am most definitely going to get a special dome pot, I guess, for this plant, something that can keep it in this same environment. Obviously, it's already hitting the top of the lid here, so I am going to need to get it out of there really soon, especially because it's already putting on another leaf. So I may get something even like a little takeout container that's like those tall cuppy looking ones. I may even put it in there for the time being, because it definitely needs something, and that high humidity is what it needs to survive in my experience. I don't know what's going on. I did have all these 3 plants in my grow tent and my smaller grow tent, but the humidity in there is at 99%. It very rarely dips below 90%. It's super high in there because I have a lot of hydroponic plants in there, so the water is constantly evaporating, constantly getting circulated with the fan, and so it promotes a lot of humidity for these plants. So I really just can't understand it because it's high in there, and I don't know, but it does do well in this. So we're going to cut these plants down. The other plant I have, this is also in Obliqua. It was the leaf propagation that I took when I took the runner propagations. That's not doing well, as you see. So I don't know what's left under here. We're going to check it out. If there's a node that may possibly be able to be saved, we'll chop that leaf off, throw that in the prop box. And then I have one of my, I think I showed this in my plant tour video, which was my last video that I posted up, the same video that we discovered the growth of the Obliqua propagation. This was my most variegated Monstera Adansonii. I bought it as a mint. I've been told it's a Indonesian form. Either way, this was my most variegated one, and as you can see, I'm losing it. What is nice is that the stem still looks very healthy in there. So that's where the variegation genes, I guess, come from. So although the leaves are kind of gone, if I can get this plant to survive, it should still carry the same variegation for the most part, being highly variegated, I guess I could say, in that node. So we'll go ahead and get started. I will also cut these runners off and propagate them individually. I'm not going to do all that in this video. This video is mainly focusing on how to cut your aroids back down to the stem. We may even chop some roots off in order to save them if they are dying. Now, this method may not always work, so if you do this, lose your plants, please, I'm very sorry, don't come at me. This is just a suggestion. This is just one way you can try to save your dying plants, your dying aroids. But again, it may not work, and it may not work not because the method was done poorly or it was a poor method for that particular plant. Your plant may already be too far gone. These plants may already be too far gone. I'm really not sure. But we're going to go ahead and give it a go. We're going to see how this works out, and hopefully these plants will survive. Okay, so I ran really quick and got my little cloth hotter upper box, I guess, so I can lay it out. That way all this stuff, especially the pond, doesn't make a mess. These things are really neat because you can literally just clip them together. They literally just pop together, and they make a nice little box that kind of holds in all the dirt, the pond, the leco, whatever it is you are repotting, without making a mess. It makes edges, like it literally makes a nice little square box for you to pot your or repot your plants in, and I really love these. So we're going to start with, I guess, these two that are in pond and see what's going on underneath. Because these are my more rare, my more expensive plants, I did already sterilize these with rubbing alcohol, especially because they are already doing poorly. I'm not going to lie. I normally don't sterilize my shears if I am working with a more expensive plant or even a more rare plant or even a plant that I know or think is easily disturbed or interrupted or, you know, whatever. I do sterilize, but I don't sterilize every time I use these shears. But I definitely am going to for this because they are already sickly and I am trying to prevent damaging them any more than they already are. So we'll start with this little guy here. Ooh, the stem is nice and green, which is a great sign. I wasn't sure how it was going to be because, you know, this looked super bad. It's rotting right here where it connects. As you see, it's kind of limped over. But that stem is nice and green. It's very healthy, which is a great plus. The roots are not so well. And I'm going to actually leave this one alone because it has new growth coming in there. The roots, it's hard to tell if they're it's really hard to tell if they are dried up or not. It's so hard to tell. I think they are, but it's like they're at the point where they're still a little, like they still have a little, I guess, you know how you would say meat on your bones? They're still a little bit thick. They're not like all shriveled up and skinny. They still got a little meat to them, meatiness to them. So, I don't know. I think I'll cut it off for the heck of it because, I mean, really, it's one root. What could possibly, can't get any worse than it is, right? So, we're doing that. Also, there is a little bit of brown on the growth points. Let me get that focused. So I don't know if that's like part of the new growth, like drying up, or maybe it was like part of a sheath that got stuck on there. So that also makes it hard for me to decide what I want to do. We're definitely gonna cut this leaf off. Ugh. And I'm just gonna spray a little rubbing alcohol on my hands, on my finger, and just kind of get it around that area just to disinfect any mush that's still there. If you do this, you don't want to obviously put a lot, but hopefully that will try to help prevent anything that's growing to make it rot anymore. So where I made that cut, it's perfectly healthy. It's not getting like mushy down in there, which is great. I am still going to pop this in a prop box because although it is growing the new growth point, the roots were terrible and it will be very hard for it to root, especially in such a big pot, because it's just gonna be very difficult. So we're gonna pop this one in a prop box, of course, and then we'll check out what's going on under here. Now, this one I know it does have a little bit more of a root system. I'm not sure, they don't really look the healthiest. Sometimes it's hard to tell because sometimes you get plants that the roots, you know, they're really thin or, you know, they're not mushy, but it's hard to tell if they're dry or, you know, dead or just dry. These are definitely dry down at the bottom, but the tops of the roots get a little thicker to them. Now, what's dry could be feeder roots. The main roots could be the thicker ones that are still a little, but even the thicker ones, they still do feel like really dried out. This plant was really hard to decide even when to water. Maybe pond wasn't the right growing medium for this plant. Maybe that's why the roots are very dried out. I didn't want to water it too much. We started getting into like the colder months and the leaves started to yellow, and once they started to yellow, they dropped like flies. They kept dropping very quickly. And because of that, I was very scared to overwater, so I would wait a little bit in between my waterings, and when I did water, instead of taking the pot and giving it a thorough watering like under the faucet, I would just take my watering can and dump a tiny bit of water in there, and honestly, I think I very much underwatered this plant. It's, some plants it's hard to tell when they need water. Some it's rather easy. Some are more visible, like some dapsus, they curl up their leaves and stuff like that. I noticed my begonias, they get pretty wilty, but then they perk right back up if I water them in time before they wilt too much. But as far as underwatering and overwatering go, how the leaf yellows sometimes you can tell. I wouldn't suggest strictly going by this because, you know, yellowing leaves can be caused by so many different things. But if your plant is underwatered, I believe it's going to yellow first towards like the tip and maybe the outer edges because water's not able to reach there. If your plant is overwatered, I think the yellowing will start more at the base of the plant, I think. But yes, I believe, by the way, where the yellowing is on the leaf, you can tell if your plant is over or underwatered. So that's a good way, that's a good thing to learn and look out for. But I just wasn't sure. I was scared. This plant cost so much money. I was just scared. I don't know what else to say. I was just scared. So, and unfortunately that cost me this plant. Luckily, I had already got one good runner that gave me a significant amount of, you know, propagations that I can work on. And I have 2 more runners that are going. I considered just letting the leaf fall off and let this plant do its thing because I knew it had a significant root system down there. But I was worried that, you know, I know if I cut the runners off, I have a chance of getting a couple more plants. Obviously, not all of them are going to take, but I have a better chance than to leave them on and let the runners die if this plant was going to die. Also, I wasn't sure how the root system looked, and as you see, if I would have left it, it most definitely would have died because the root system is very dried up. Now, This one's going to be a little tricky. I know I'm cutting off the runners, so we're just going to go ahead and do that. Like I said, we are not going to root these runners right now. I'll do that on my own time because this video is not necessarily a propagation video. This is just, you know, a video trying to save some of these dying plants. There is a bunch of nodes on this. A lot of the nodes are very close together. As you see, everywhere you see like the lines going down, that's where the nodes split up. Some of them are rather close together. Like down here, they get really close together. But there are some growth points coming in. Like right here we have one, if you can see that. And there are a few of those going around. I'm not sure if I want to leave the whole node intact or maybe cut it in half. Because this plant is struggling, honestly, I think I'm just going to leave it go. I can decide if I want to, you know, cut it in half later. You know, I can always cut it later. I'd rather do as less damage, disturb the plant as less as possible, I guess. So we're just going to go ahead and cut off these roots, and this will be another one that's going into the prop box, obviously. Alright, so I've cut all the roots off. I did leave the little aerial roots that are kind of popping out a tiny bit that are still, you know, able to grow on there. So that way, you know, it'll start growing a little faster if that one is able to be saved. And now we'll check out the one I have here in Leca. This is my Monstera, my variegated Monstera Adansonii. Obviously, the stem also does look very healthy still, which is also a great sign. So I think these plants may make it as long as I can give them the proper care, the proper environment. I do believe I will be able to salvage these plants, which I'm very happy for. I was very upset when I started to see these go. Now, I've had the Adansonii since last winter, the variegated one, and since before last winter, and I did notice for this plant does get really rough in the winter. This is another one that is very hard to take care of through the winter. It's very fussy, it's very particular. Last winter I had a bunch of, this is a new growth point, this whole stem, but there's also a little guy coming in there, so I'm going to leave that on there. But it's very hard to take care of. Leaves were yellowing left and right. Once spring hit though, you know, the plant picked up, grew almost double the leaves it did before winter hit, which is good. So I'm hoping, I have a couple of these growing and they're starting to yellow because the winter's hitting and stuff like that. It's getting cold. I try to keep it as warm as possible, but even still, it's almost like no matter what you do, it's like they know it's winter time. They know. So anyways, they know it's winter. They're starting to yellow. I'm very, very careful with the watering. I think I have them in pawn. I might have one. This one was in Leca, but I think I do have another one or two other ones in pawn. So definitely be super careful on the watering with these. This is another one that I just dump a tiny bit of water in because I'm scared. Maybe I should wait in between periods and give them a nice thorough watering. Let them drain out. The pond is very airy. It's very airy. It's very porous. So really, unless you're watering your plants like every day, it kind of is hard to overwater, but I just get so nervous. So anyways, I took the roots off this one. I have one more little mushy here. We took the leaves off. It does have a growth point coming in right here, and that's just our last one that we're gonna throw in the propagation box. So I am going to go ahead and use the propagation boxes that I was using with the rest of the Obliqua runners. I have 4 in each box. I definitely can see some of these are not going to make it, but you know, I leave them in until they rot, you know, or until they die. Some of them look like they're starting to grow a little bit better, starting to get like some roots, and their growth points are growing a little bit, so that's great. So we'll just kind of move these along, give these guys some more space. I want to try to keep them together so I know what's what, like which came from, you know, what, when I propagated them. you know, because obviously I'm going to be adding new ones into it, so maybe I'll put all the ones that I propagated last time together in this box, because until they start to root, honestly, they can, you know, be kind of cramped in here. They don't really need much space until they start to develop roots and stuff like that. So I'm going to transfer these into this box and put all the new stuff in here. All right, so we just threw all those in there. We'll pop these three, we'll just lay them down nice. I try to keep the growth points up if there is any. Keep the obliquas together, and we'll keep the Adansonii on the other side. So there we have those. So that's all for the dying plants. Hopefully they will survive. Hopefully they'll make it through. I definitely will do an update on this in a video at some point. And look for updates on my Instagram, because I am always posting updates, especially on propagations and stuff like that on there. It's a lot easier. It's a little silly sometimes to make a video on like one plant that you propagated to do an update. So unless I have like a whole bunch, or it's been like 6 months, then obviously I'll make the video. But until then, check out updates on my Instagram. I'm always doing them there. So let me get this cleaned up, and then the part of the video everybody was looking forward to, announcing the winner of the Pink Princess Philodendron. Ready? I am. All right, let's see who the lucky winner shall be. We'll give these a good little mixing. All right, and here goes the pick. Tammy Stewart. Tammy Stewart, you are the new proud parent owner of this beautiful Pink Princess Philodendron. Thank you guys for joining in this giveaway. Thank you for subscribing, liking my content, just being a part of my small community. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're interested in the content I provide. And as always, every plant is a princess. Bye!